Okay, so we should be live. Hi everybody that will be following this video on replay. We are together with Eric from Sweden. Hi Eric.
Hello.
Thanks a lot for joining me. I have to apologize to everybody because we had to reschedule from one day due to personal reason for myself. It was a happy news in the family, so that's always something cool. But thanks a lot again to Eric for his flexibility and also to all of you. I don't like to announce something and then have it to remove it, but yeah, real life has priorities. It's still a hobby. So Eric, maybe can you, as an introduction, and as we are going to wait for the people joining the live, can you introduce a bit about yourself, for how long you play the game, your role as a lead game designer, for how long have you been doing that, what other role you have been having for the project? I think that would interest also people to get to know you better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello everybody. I am Eric Aronson. On the forum, I go by the nickname Fjugin. I've been involved in this sort of the greater wargaming community since I was teenager, so maybe like 13, 14. And I'm quite a bit older now, so what is it, like 25 years, something like that. And then for the ninth age specific, I was involved since the very beginning, which was, what is it now? 9 years ago, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Did you were part, just out of curiosity, were you part of the Swedish comp that was popular in the Warhammer world? Okay, you were part of this group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I was one of the main author for that Swedish comp system, which is also, it sort of led itself into ninth age in a way, because there was a bit of, people knew of the Swedish comp system, so that gave the ninth age a bit of credibility, I think.
Yeah. Indeed, it was
Um,
for those of you who know the system, it was a really fun system that allows you pretty much to play with everything in all book, and I think that was something that all players enjoyed, and also the painter or hobbyist, because you had nothing really left out in your collection of miniatures. That was really cool back in the day.
was back in the day, long time ago. So for the ninth age, I've been primarily part of what was called the rules team, which was the people involved in designing the rules, essentially. And this role have been evolving over the years. The most recent change, it was renamed to the lead game designer, at least my role. So that sort of means that I am kind of the overseer of all design related things.
Okay. Are you alone in this role, or are you a group, part of a group?
So it's a single role, which is me, but there is a support group which is called the senior designers. We are maybe around 5 people,
Yeah.
plus me, and then there was also, since maybe a month or so ago, also the third edition design team, but it was merged with the senior design team recently.
Okay.
There is a sort of a lead game designer with the senior designers, and then there is also the bigger game design team. So in total, it's like 30 people working on the design specific things.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
quite a lot of people to manage and to sort of oversee and all of
Okay.
these things.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you quickly. I'm seeing on the chat that the volume might not be optimal. Could you please let us know if I'm too loud or too low, and also about Eric, then I can adjust it in the parameters and make it more enjoyable for you. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. And can you tell us a bit about the lead game designer? I mean, what do you do during the year to be maybe more concrete? I mean, obviously we are talking about version 3.0, so I think that should be one of the main projects that you are in charge. But what other stuff are you doing during the year?
So let's say before third edition started, and it started actually maybe a bit more than a year ago. But before that started, the role of the lead game designer, or the rules team, as it was perhaps called back then.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing is to create design guidelines for the game design team to execute. So, for example, if we do a new army book, then there is a high-level document called the design guidelines that sort of describes roughly what should the book focus on, what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the different play styles, things like that. What should the book try to deliver? And then the game design team tries to recreate the book in that with those guidelines in mind. And then at various points, I would also look at the work, review it. Is it following the guidelines? Do I see any balance problems and all sort of things like that?
Okay, interesting.
That's sort of the work I did maybe 2 years ago. For third edition, it's more hands-on. I'm sort of the main author for the rule book of the third edition.
Okay.
So then it's a much more sort of hands-on design work, but also still design guideline related things for how to translate or convert books from second edition to third edition.
Okay, not only fancy stuff. Okay, Eric, I'm seeing that we have the first couple of questions on the chat, so I would suggest we could move on to the actual questions and topic of the day, if it's fine for you.
Yes, let's dive
Let's
into the question.
kick off. Thanks also for the guys who are participating on the chat. Don't hesitate if you have any question. I will try to ask them to Eric, and we talk about the subject. It's really the idea of this live is to give you the voice, give you the opportunity to ask question tonight. The first question that we have is also interesting for me is how much are going the army book to change? And I think that's one of the major concern of the people. They are afraid that the balance might be crashed by this new version of the game. So what can you tell us about that?
So it's a difficult question to answer, right? Because sort of measuring how much something changes it's a very subjective thing. But definitely there will be changes. I would say you could perhaps divide the changes into two sort of general types. So one of the possible types of changes that all army books will see is changes in rulebook that affect the army books. Like a model rule is tweaked, and I mean, then if it doesn't work as it used to, then of course the army book that uses that rule would have to change. Right. So there's a lot of those sorts of tweaks in army books. So that's one of the changes, and these should be pretty straightforward, right? They are more or less just a conversion from one system to another with as little change as possible, but it's not always so easy. The other change is goal-related changes. So third edition is trying to execute on a couple of goals. Simpler rules, faster gameplay, more focus on rank and file, for example. These are 3 goals, and they have an impact on army books.
Yeah.
Right. For example, we want to make the game slightly simpler. That also includes the army books. So army books would see some simplifications, for example. So definitely expect army books to change.
But to make it feel like, maybe to make it more concrete, if regarding the play style, I mean, should we expect to have new play style? The design of the book will remain the same, right?
Mostly yes, but one of the goals is to enhance rank and flank play styles.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
you might see
More infantry.
sort of
Yeah.
play styles, and then also a move away from more static gunlines, perhaps, or more avoidance. Things like some moves you will see in that direction. Hopefully, we don't like completely destroy any playstyles. That's not the intention, but it's a lot of moving pieces, 16 books. So it's hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. And the reason I say that is because when we do release this, it's not like the books are final set in stone. Like there will be a period of public play testing, public continuous updating, and sort of finding out where did we screw up, what playstyles did we change that we didn't want to change, like what things like that will happen, and we will try to address them, just so people are aware that when we release, that's
also, yeah, I think that's also one of the strengths of the project is the agility. I mean, if something goes wrong, we can always revert back some of the change, adapt quickly. So I think it shouldn't be, at least it's not something that's concerning me, that the game will be unbalanced and completely change.
Regarding balance, that's, I mean, obviously it's very hard to fix how balance, like how will a rules change affect the intricacies of balance. Hard to predict, so definitely when the game is first released, balance will not be as good as it is today, for sure. But we will work very hard to reach good balance again. But it will take some time, and it will need a lot of playtesting data to actually reach there.
Okay. So as you can see, guys, on the screen, I've put a question that I collected mainly from my French YouTube channel. I put also translation in English, so we'll try to go through all these topics. And also I'm thinking on the chat that one of the question that is coming again and again is about release date. We have, for example, in France, the biggest ninth age tournament of the year is happening usually in France towards September, and people are wondering if can we expect, I think the official communication has been July, like kind of a target date. How confident are you that you should be able to maintain a release date around that month? And also linked to that, are going to be all army books released together, or are they going to be batches like it has been in the past sometimes?
Yeah, so the original hope, like a year ago, was in June. We at some point we realized that's not realistic. So the current estimate, or the current target, is end of summer. Which means in August. That's the plan, and I think we are on track. I have been in contact with the organizer of this specific French tournament you mentioned.
Cool to know.
So hopefully, definitely trying to make it happen so that third edition can be played there. That will be, I think everyone involved wants that to happen, right? So that's
cool.
Definitely we're trying to get there.
But
we're not there with a lot of work to do before we.
I guess that. I think we can all understand that. But something that personally I've been happy to hear, it's also that the Ninth Age project have been taken into consideration the tournament scene. For example, ETC, like you mentioned now, the big French tournament that's going to happen. So stuff like that, to try to make it in a way that fits the needs of the community and is not going to create any chaos. For example, if the version 3 would have been released like 3 months before ETC, it could have been quite chaotic to have people playing version 2 for ETC, other people playing version 3, stuff like that. So I'm really happy that the project is also careful about that, because I think it's
we're trying, but it's hard to keep track of all events in the world. If you have concerns, just let us know, and we'll see if we can do anything about it, or if we can.
I think that's the main world is with the Ninth Age community in general, and the people working for the project, is there is always a way to get in contact with you guys. I mean, being on the topic, there are enough people that are able to answer, and I've never seen any question remaining unanswered voluntarily. I think people are always keen to try to give answers and an explanation.
Yeah, we try.
Okay, then we have another concern. It's something that is a bit below on my topic list, but I'm seeing it also on the chat. It's about base size. I've been
Hmm.
hearing the argument of people saying, should we, meaning the Ninth Age project, change the base to try to follow the footstep of the old world, to also try to kind of make the crossing between the two games easier and try to kind of take advantage in case the old world doesn't work as expected, that the people could easily switch back to the Ninth Age. The counter argumentation to that, and I'm more in that camp, so to say, would be we are making our own game. So I personally don't see many reason to follow the old world, since we are creating the separate game with separate names and so on. So I'm thinking both points, but what's your answer on that topic?
Yeah, this is a very difficult subject. That like everyone has their own idea
Yeah,
of how this should be handled, and there is very far from a consensus on what's the best approach. As you say, like we are our own game. We have our own, not our own miniatures, but we have our own unit entries, and we have used the same base sizes more or less for many years. People have, collections and armies, and people don't want
rebasing
to
hurts. Rebasing hurts.
everyone hates it. At the same time, we also want to grow our player base,
Yeah,
right? And allowing players from different systems, like the old world, but also other systems to sort of test Ninth Age without having to rebase. That would
yeah.
be, or at least potentially, like we don't actually know how useful it is to get new players, but maybe it's a good source. Um, so what we do have a plan, and this is the result of long discussions. But the plan at the moment is to have some sort of possibility for changing bases of your army, right? And then more or less flexibility in that, but to make it clearly suboptimal, so it's not something you would normally do. Like it's useful for someone coming in from a different gaming system to test the game,
Okay.
but it's probably not useful for someone who's more hardcore into Ninth Age and actually playing only that game. Then it's not useful for that.
Okay. So
That's what we're
if I
trying
get you
to do.
right, the base are going to stay like they are. On the army book, there is no rebasing plan at the moment, at least. But there would be like some crossing possible from other games with rule that would make them a way to adapt and play with their own base, a normal ninth age game without having to rebase everything. That's more going
Yeah,
into
the,
that direction at the moment. Okay.
the default bases will definitely stay. Like there will be no army or game-wide
Yeah.
rebasing of
Yeah.
everything. That's not happen. No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But there will be, or at least we will test this. Maybe it not won't be in the final version, but the idea is a way to let people, in an official way, play with bigger bases,
Yeah.
essentially.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And then some safeguards to make sure that that doesn't get abused.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I
Mm.
think that's a good solution. That's the solution I was hoping for. I think most of us, like you say, miniatures. I mean, rebasing. I can remember from back in the day when we had to do it first. I think it's not something players like to do. So I'm quite happy to hear that. More generally speaking, how hard will it be to adapt to version 3.0? I mean, if you are a V2 player, maybe some occasional player that don't play that much, is it going to be hard to learn the new rules? How is the adaptation? What should we expect? Because I think some
Yeah.
people are afraid that they don't play that often. They play maybe one tournament in a year, and then they have to learn new rules and might be caught off by some rules.
Mm. Yeah, it's very hard to say. course. The indications we have from the internal playtesting, like there are no indications that the game is particularly hard to pick up if you are a second edition player, as all of the
Yeah.
internal playtesters are. However, most internal playtesters, they are kind of, involved in the game, right? Because they signed up to be an internal playtester. So maybe not the best group to actually answer this question. So therefore, I'm saying it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I don't see any huge problems from this. Like there are no indications that there would be, but hard to say. Um,
Yeah, it's going to be very independent from player to player.
I think so as well, right? It is independent. Definitely, like if you played second edition, you will recognize a lot of things. Like most things
Yeah.
will be more or less recognizable. Like it's not a completely new game; it's still the ninth age. But it is, if we would compare it to the previous edition change, like when we went from first edition to second edition, for those of you who were present at that time, this edition change will be bigger, I would say.
Okay.
If we compare it to what happened in Warhammer
Yeah.
many years ago, from 7th edition to 8th edition, my feeling is that we are doing a smaller step now.
Okay.
But I mean, probably different people will have different takes
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this. Right?
I think here there is
Take
also for me a role to play from the YouTuber like myself to show games, battle reports that will help people that don't play that much to get more
Mm.
playing experience and stuff. So I think there is also something to do about the community engagement here to try to fill up that kind of gap and help people to get to know the new version as quick as possible. Speaking of games, you mentioned playtester. How many games are played at the moment from version 3.0 per week, more or less? Can you give us some numbers for how long has it started?
I think I need to check the reports, but playtesting started maybe sometimes after the summer, so maybe in October, something like that. We had the first playtesting reports. Then, of course, the rule book and all of the army books have changed since then. So it's sort of it's a constantly
Yeah,
evolving
yeah.
thing.
Ongoing
But
process. Yeah.
yeah, but it's definitely a couple of game reports each week.
Okay.
Uh, then maybe there are more games played than are reported.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard to tell. Hopefully not. Hopefully all of the playtested games are actually reported.
Okay. I see. I will try to go through now through more specific questions that I written down in advance.
Sure.
We all have seen the changes in relation to the champions, and linked to that, I see here two questions. The first one will be how will conclave be managed in version 3.0? Will they remain as an option, still magician that you have to pay additional points, but are they going like this new type of small characters that are in the unit, or is it going to be handled differently?
Differently, yeah. The conclave will still be a unit upgrade, so the unit will have spells just as they did now. But instead of having a fixed champion model, it will be more flexible. So I think if I recall correctly, what you do is at the start of the magic phase, you pick one model and says, "That's my wizard,
Okay.
this magic," and then that model casts spells. And if he dies from a miscast, then for the rest of that magic phase you can't cast, but in next magic phase you can again.
Okay.
It's pretty.
Okay.
It's a bit more. It's harder maybe to sort of assassinate the spellcaster.
Okay.
You have to actually whole unit.
Because on a personal level, that's always something that has been kind of a concern, or in regards to the balance, is the fact that as a conclave you can sometimes like five dice something, force it through, and actually you lose no point for that. So the like downside for the risk taken has been to me a bit strange in comparison to normal mages, and it might be even more unbalanced with what you mentioned.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, if you lose the spell, then at least that's a real drawback.
Yeah.
You can of course lose the whole unit. That's maybe not so likely unless it's a very small unit.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do, at least to combat this a little bit, is to sort of pay a bit more attention to what spells the conclave knows. So maybe not the
Okay.
most
Okay.
powerful
Yeah,
spells.
you can balance it that way. Yeah. Yeah.
A bit at least, but
Yeah.
I mean, in some situations, even the weaker spells can be very impactful.
Yeah. 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 I see what you mean. Okay, the second question in relation to the champion changes is in relation to the characters. Are the positioning of the characters inside the unit still matter in close combat? So meaning, are we still going to be able to take advantage from that and all that technical stuff that you might do with the champion positioning, or the character positioning is going to remain the way it is?
It will matter less than today, but it will still matter. Like, for example, some ways that it will matter less. It will be like everyone will be able to do the swirling melee thing, so you can always attack, even if sort of a character is
Okay, in
in
front of you, yeah.
position. Yeah, so that is one detail. We are also trying a thing where we lock the unit boundaries before we remove any casualties in combat,
Okay.
which means that sort of a character that starts the turn in base contact, then he will always be able to attack, even if it's a small unit that shrinks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it matters less, but there are things where it still matters, like characters attacking other characters. You have to be in base contact still, so that
Yeah.
still matters.
Yeah.
Mm. It might also matter for like a flank charge and you have a character on the flank or not. It could matter for charging out of a unit.
Yeah.
So it will matter, but the idea, and this is more of a general direction that we're trying to move the game in. The idea is less focus on these micro
Yeah.
tactics, such as exact position of a character, things like that, and more focus on the bigger macro
Mm-hmm.
strategies like deployment, moving units sort of in a cohesive manner.
Yeah.
That's it. So this is a small piece of that, how character matters, and there are countless of other similar small tweaks here and there to sort of nudge the game in that direction.
Okay. Interesting. Before I move on to the next question, I remind the people on the chat, because you are quite a lot on the chat, which pleases us a lot. Don't hesitate to ask any question you might have. I have a couple here more, so don't hesitate. If you have any, you can ask them on the chat. We will be happy to answer them. Next question for me, you talk at the beginning, you mentioned the game duration, that your goal is going to make the game bigger. Can you give us any goal in terms of game duration?
Yeah, the original goal was to try to cut 1 hour from the average game,
Okay, wow.
which is a lot. And when we what so in early versions of third edition, like back in the autumn, uh, a lot of the things we did to try to achieve that got quite negative feedback from playtesters. So we have cut back on this. Because it sort of the feedback was we're cutting too much things, it's sort of dumbing down the game.
Yeah.
So now the ambition is scaled back quite a lot. So I don't think we will be able to cut 1 hour from the average game. Maybe half an hour,
Yeah.
something like that. Like there are countless of small things made to make the game play faster or sort of skip unnecessary time wasting moments.
Okay.
For
I
example,
Yeah.
maybe the charge rules were spoiled a couple of months ago. So one of the things there is, right, there is no all units cannot stand and shoot anymore. Like the units only hits on sixes, and
Yeah.
these sort of just rolling a lot of dice and then maybe one model dice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much in most cases, just wasting time. That's
Okay.
not gonna be as common anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
In relation also to other stuff, like we have deployment mentioned in a question. Is it going to stay? We know that it's a topic that I see from time to time, deploying everything for first turn. Is it a mechanism that you're trying to get rid of, that you're trying to make less obvious sometime or happen less often? Is it something that you're trying to get completely rid of? What's your opinion on that?
It's a sort of a conflicting question, or maybe, or like, so what I'm trying to get at is dropping for first turn. That's a very fast way of deploying, right? So
Yeah,
if we want to speed up the game, we should keep it.
yeah,
However, deploying, every other unit, that's sort of very much in the macro strategy sort of direction of the game. So that's why I'm saying there is a bit of a conflict
okay,
here.
I see.
We try to find a middle way. Essentially, if you drop everything on your first drop, you get +2 to the roll for first turn.
Mhm.
If you drop before the opponent, you get +1. So there is an incentive to drop
Okay, yeah.
everything, but it's not auto anymore.
Okay, it's just plus
I
one.
don't.
Yeah.
No, it's +2.
Ah, plus two. Okay.
But it's not guaranteed. So
Okay, yeah,
maybe we
yeah, it's
couple of games.
quite interesting. I feel at least you have
Yeah.
to think about it. It's less like automatic. Okay, now in this case, it's like I'm going to
Mm,
start, so let's go. You take the risk
yeah.
that the opponent might be able to adjust his entire deployment and then still play before you, which could be in some matches problematic.
Yeah, it could be, but it could also be that you don't have so many drops, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could go for +2.
Okay, interesting.
So this is, of course, I mean, it's a very small detail, so it's very easy to adapt
Yeah, yeah,
if it doesn't
yeah,
hope
indeed.
it will. Yeah.
In relation to movement, you mentioned before the charges. Is it going to be the similar for just the movement? I mean, just regarding legal movement, is going to be the whole unit boundary that matters, or is it going to be similar to the charges? It's more about like the front.
Or similar to charges.
Okay.
So during a move, you will only measure the front facing, so the line, which is the front of the unit,
Yeah.
which means that sort of if you have a lot of deep units next to each other, they won't be sort of stuck as easily. So hopefully that sort of encourages more rank and file play, right? Because you can have bigger units and they can be more crammed together without sort of messing up the
Yeah.
movement of each other. And also potentially it's also sort of easier and faster to measure that way because it's less things to measure.
Okay.
So the feedback I would say is pretty positive on this. Actually, people really like that it's so flexible,
Cool.
at least part,
Coming back to a topic we mentioned before, balance. There is some people concerned about the changes of balance. I've been seeing on the forum various topic on that subject. Also, people like tracking the augmentation of point through the time or the diminution of point through the time, allowing us to get more unit on the table. Is it something you can confirm regarding like balancing? I think the process of balancing will probably remain the same. I mean, with the yearly update, seems like something ongoing that you're happy about, the way I see it. And in relation to
Yeah.
that, the second question would be game size. Are we going to move on to 4K or stay at 4.5?
Okay, so the first question about sort of the process of updating
Yeah.
prices. What we have done in the past, as probably most people in the chat knows is we do an annual update in 2 steps. So first a sort of unstable version, and then it's sort of solidified 2 months later, something like that. I imagine with that we will keep on doing this for third edition. It's working pretty good, I would say. It's definitely everyone doesn't agree that that's the best frequency of doing this, but I don't foresee a change in this. However, this is sort of one of the things that happened when the role for rules design was, or rules team was redesigned to lead game designer, was that the balance and pricing things was sort of pushed away from me, which is honestly quite nice because it's a lot of
It's a
work
lot
to
of
do the
work.
balance.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't want to promise anything
yeah,
because it's not really on my table to promise.
yeah.
My understanding of what the plans are is we will keep doing annual updates, and during the initial period of third edition, there will be a lot more,
Yeah,
right? Because it
yeah,
will be a lot worse, and also the rules will change for individual units and things like that, and then of course the pricing will have to change also with that.
yeah.
So for a period of time, I don't know how long, maybe half a year, the prices will fluctuate quite a lot, and then they will start
Yeah, I think it
stabilize
makes
and
sense. It's like the adjustment period after release when we figure out some things that are unbalanced and then you are able to fix it. So I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
appreciated by everybody rather than just waiting 1 year with an unbalanced game. I mean, that's way
yeah,
better.
yeah. That would probably not be so good.
And what about
And also,
the size, the 4K? Is it
yep.
something you can confirm?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw the news announcement, the last one, which was about the IDs for a season, like an annual
Yeah, yeah,
season.
yeah.
Uh, This season will define the sort of the recommended standard game size. So it's something that might change from year to year, or maybe it will stay the same. We don't really have that decided. For the first season, we will do 4,000 points.
Okay.
That's the plan.
For me, what
Yeah,
was
and that
kind of difficult to understand in relation to this season was how much is it more like a background, a fluff thing, like cool to try out but less competitive, and how much will it be like a more competitive kind of package that allows us to adapt and change, for example, the maps, like it has been the case in the ETC pack this year. Is it more something we can expect to use at tournament or more something like at home to relax?
it's the idea is sort of it's adapted to be used for tournaments,
Okay.
but it's wrapped in a background sort of setting. But the background setting has sort of a what should we say? It's not it doesn't sort of dictate or sort of take over the design. It's more of a sort of it's the background setting, and the things that we have rules for in the season pack. It's the maps, the deployment types, the secondary objectives, and a few more sort of minor things like that.
Okay.
These, I mean, the intention is that they are definitely usable for tournaments.
Yeah.
So they would replace, for example, the map pack that most tournaments use today. You
Okay.
would just
Cool.
use this pack. Like the maps there are not crazy, you know, very narrative,
Yeah.
game-driven things. They're sort of, they're definitely usable for tournaments, but hopefully also usable for more narrative games. Like the setting or the background, it provides a very good setting also for designing more narrative games.
Yeah.
Although that might not be, at least for the first season, that won't really be part of the release. Maybe for future seasons, there will also be more narrative driven games, rules for that. Like
It,
the it's a lot of unknowns for this
Yeah,
season pass.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Is it something that you learned also from the reaction of the ETC community saying for this year we are going to make new maps, we are going to make new objective? Did you kind of recognize, okay, that's something that when people need kind of news on a yearly basis, and that's why you came to the idea of making this campaign pack where, if I understood you correctly, there is one part which is going to be kind of fix setting those maps, objective and deployment that are going to change every year, and the rest is more like a fluff or background part with the character and more narrative stuff. Is it something that came from this from the ETC community?
A bit, definitely. Although the ETC community is quite, you know, reluctant to changing things every year.
Yeah.
They want to keep the same thing every year
Yeah.
if they can. But maps is definitely one of the things that updates every year, and this year we also had new deployments and new secondaries. And the approach that the ETC is doing this year, I think, is very good, and I at least currently intend to do something
in relation to new secondaries and new deployment, and I found that I think the people enjoyed that, also being like involved and having the occasion to involve themselves only punctually, like only for that, not having to take an active role that remains all year long, but more like submitting an idea and being part of the project in a way.
I don't know if you remember, but we did this in the ninth stage for the map
For the
pack,
maps, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Years ago, something like that. It was quite fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, we should do that again, definitely. Hard for season 1, of course, since people don't know the rules.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
For season 2, we will sort of start off phasing things like that.
Cool.
It's good.
Happy to hear that. We talked before about like rule book, army books. Is there going to be a more light army books with the main rules and then like an additional or an appendix with detail rule, or you keep it that way? Okay, you keep it like one rule book, everything inside. Okay.
Yeah, we will do that division for the rule book, but not for army books.
But for the rule book it will be the case.
Yes, so the rule book would be a core rule book, and then the so-called reference manual, which is it's a copy of the core rulebook, but with extra details added for sort of corner cases and specific interactions.
Mm-hmm. What should we expect in terms of size of those two books? Is the core rulebook will be similar to the one we have at the moment, or is it going to be a bit smaller?
Smaller. I would say the reference manual is pretty much what the rulebook is in second edition.
Yeah.
Because that rule tries to deal with all of the, everything, right? There should be no unclear, undefined situations.
Yeah.
That's the goal of the second edition, and that will be the reference manual's sort of intention, and then the core rulebook will be more written for someone that's trying to learn the rules.
Okay.
So maybe so you read the core rulebook once, you don't actually read the reference manual from start to finish.
Yeah.
You just something arises on the battlefield, or if you want the answer to some specific detail, then you go to the reference manual.
Okay.
At least that's how I envision these to be used. Yeah. For army books, it's not really. I don't think it's really useful to divide it like that. It's
no, I don't think so. Yeah, that wasn't my question as well. I think it's mainly about the rule book. I think with a smaller rule book, you make it also more accessible to new players.
Yeah, that's definitely the idea.
It's less scary.
Less scary and perhaps easier to read from start to finish.
Yeah. I have also a question from somebody. I think we know already the answer, but it's a special question. Is asking like, are you trying to go in a way that the game is going to have more interaction and less turn-by-turn game, like active, passive player, or this mechanism is going to stay the same, which would be my assumption.
Yeah, I would say definitely. mostly the same, right? It's like the turn-based structure is a very fundamental part of the ninth age.
Yeah.
I think most people that plays the game would agree with that. Maybe not everyone, but most people. So that's gonna be kept. And then also it's sort of a fairly fundamental thing in ninth age that in the melee phase, both players take part. In the magic phase, both players take part, and then in the movement and shooting, it's mostly as one player.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the basic structure will be kept.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Would have been a huge change to try to change that. I think it's like
Yeah,
the base of the game, the turn by turn would be.
yeah, exactly. It's a completely different game
Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
we drop.
Would be too much.
And it could be a very good game as well, for sure. But we're doing ninth age, and I
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
sort of owe it to the community to make something that is still ninth
yeah,
age.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Guys on the chat, I don't see any more questions. I have a couple more on my screen. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If not, then we will slowly conclude. I have a couple more to ask to Eric. I think that's been a very interesting insight until now. So I'm curious to see more questions. Maybe if you have, don't hesitate to ask them. We still have a couple of time more for them. I have then a very specific question about War Machine. Apparently, some people think that they are not so competitive anymore. I would tend to disagree. I think we still see enough of them. I think I would try to also rephrase a bit this War Machine question. For me, it's also about, it's quite, how can I say, there is like a variance around the War Machine's potential outcome. I mean, the risk, it can pretty much, it's a bit hit or miss mechanic. It can do a lot but also do nothing. Are you trying to is it going to be something done about the variance, maybe like reduce the potential damage done and in compensation for that, like the likelihood of hitting or wounding is going to be improved in a way? Is it something considered?
Yeah, it's considered. So the counter argument to the reason why I mean we haven't just done it completely is sort of it's an often an exciting moment, right? When you roll to it, or if you're gonna roll
Yeah,
to wound, or you roll the multiple wounds, it's a very exciting
indeed.
instant, and that's sort of the moments that some people play the game for those moments, right? So we don't want to take them away,
Okay,
at
interesting.
least not. But with that said, um, the direction that War Machine design is moving is slightly less impactful overall on average. So it's a bit less sort of, if you get the perfect shot, you will win the game.
Yeah.
That will happen less often. For reliability, War Machines will be a bit more directed towards specific targets, I would say. So each War Machine have a,
Okay.
some
Less
specific
versatile.
targets that against it, maybe slightly, more average on for other things.
Okay.
And misfire likely going away more or less. I mean, Vermin will still have some sort of misfire. Or for most war machines, it's probably not gonna stay.
Okay. I think that's a good news, because it has been very frustrating when you pay for two cannons and you get double misfire and then the game changed completely.
Yeah, that can be sort of annoying for sure. And as a result of all of this, I imagine that at least over time, I don't know what's the current status of the war machine pricing, but over time, I imagine that it will sort of go down a bit in price also.
Okay.
So that it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
interesting. I'm just reading my question. If I have anything else, I don't see more question on the chat. Drop first turn.
mhm.
I think I've covered pretty much everything. Is it anything you would like to mention that we haven't talked about?
Let's see. What we didn't talk so much about the sort of the
Maybe I have one about the magic. I've been hearing some rumors that the magic phase could be quite significantly changed. What are you able to tell us? I was like hearing stuff about like new mechanic for the spell being like, because I think it's typically a phase of the game where we could win time. Can you tell
yeah.
us, give us some spoiler about the new magic phase?
Sure. Yeah, so magic is an area of the game that has changed a lot with every version, with every internal alpha version of the third edition. So we are in version 0.5 at the moment. So we have gone through 4 previous versions, and every one of them have very big overhaul of the magic phase. And in every version since the first, we have slowly moved towards closer and closer to second edition. So
Okay.
at least from my perspective, having seen what was there before,
Yeah.
current third edition magic phase is pretty similar to second edition, to be honest.
Okay.
The basic casting mechanics is the same. You roll dice and you're gonna hit the casting value, and the dispel mechanics is also the same.
Yeah.
And then there are some tweaks to dice generation. There are some tweaks to bounce spells. There are tweaks to miscast, but there is still miscast.
Yeah.
And things like that. But for the most part, I would say like the core mechanics is very similar. And the reason why we're changing or testing so much magic is that we want magic to scale better, both scale with army size, so that the game is more playable for very small, 2,000 points, and also more playable for very big games without sort of special add-ons.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons, and also to scale a bit more with investment in magic.
Yeah.
So that not just about how many spells you have, but it's sort of a bit more functional in that way. Perhaps it should be playable to have only one adept. Right? In second edition, I would say it's not really, unless you take maybe it's third spell or some bounce spells and things like that. But the core level single adept is trash in second edition. In third edition, we hope that a single adept is playable.
Okay.
So that's sort of why we are tinkering so much.
I see.
And then also we want to provide some fresh new things into the game, which means that all of the paths have design changes.
Yeah.
And that complicates balance of the magic phase. Because then you also have to think about all of the new spells and all of the new...
all the potential implication of the changes. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, that complicates things, but it's... Hopefully people enjoy also the bit fresh new ideas in the magic phase.
I think so.
New things.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, we've been having a stable game for a long period, so I think the change will be welcomed, and I can relate to that. I think one of the things that I was willing to mention towards the end is also I've been receiving, and I can follow that myself also. It's the same opinion that I have. A lot of people being very exciting and very positive about the upcoming version, saying we trust the project, it's going to be good, it's going to be better, and we are looking forward to it. That's the most type of reaction that I've been seeing. Some people have been a bit afraid and like asking and unsecure about stuff, but the majority of the player, it's more about excitement. Like, how soon can we start? I want to have that. I want to be sure that the next big tournament I have the version 3.0 because it's going to be so much better and so on. So I think there is a lot of trust inside of the community towards the project and what you're doing, and yeah, very excited to see what's going to be done. And we can relate to what you said. I think we are very happy to get new stuff, new rules, a new game in a way, but still remains the ninth age that we know. So it's not going to be completely new, but still some refreshing news and just making the game more enjoyable, and some annoying stuff or stuff that can be complicated sometimes and taking a lot of time and maybe leading towards argument is going to be removed due to those changes. So I think that's very positive.
Yeah, and hopefully also this will be an easier platform to recruit new players.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the hope. It's of course really hard to do with only rules changes. So I mean,
Indeed.
people have to also sort of do something here, but it's a bit of community effort needed to make this happen. But what we can do from game design directly, or sort of from our side, is I think provide a nice, simple rule book that sort of that you can present to friends and you know
Yeah, indeed.
people in the community that could be potential new players.
Yeah, I think
Sort
that's
of.
that's one of the topic that we knew we could improve the way the ninth age works, because it has been quite hard. If you tell to somebody that is unfamiliar with a war game, come and start ninth age, I mean, he might need a year to be a decent player. So that's always been something quite hard to do with war game, as also before with Warhammer. It wasn't easy, and it's not easier, but it might be. And I think that's a hope. And if we get a new player, I think that would be awesome. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to do a bit some more sort of comeback mechanics and some more enjoyable things to do even if you're losing.
Okay.
Which perhaps or maybe it can help to get sort of people enjoying the game even if they are new players, not so experienced and
Yeah.
sort of loses most games. Like you can still have fun. That's the hope. I think you can do it in second edition, but I probably we can do it even better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, Eric, I've been saying everything, asking everything I wanted and the community wanted. We have been a couple of people live on the chat, so I think they've been, I hope, enjoying as I did this discussion with you. Thanks a lot for all the insights. It has been very interesting and just got me more excited to see what will be coming. So really looking forward to that. And yeah, thanks a lot for your work. I think that's the main word I want, the main sentence I want to tell you at the end of the conversation. Thanks a lot, because I think what I've been able to realizing during this conversation is the amount of effort you and the rest of the team you put into this. I mean, it has been crazy. I mean, to balance new stuff like that, it's not an easy job, like we understood, and
Yeah.
it's still a lot to do. So thanks a lot for the time you're investing into that.
No, it's when we release, it's not even, it's far from done.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's no, it's no.
Eric,
But then it,
anything you would like to add regarding version 3.0, or did we cover everything we wanted?
to the important bits, we hope to release in August. The sooner the better, but there is no defined date at the moment, so I can't say any. I don't know anything more than than anybody else. It's in August. That's the plan,
Yeah.
and we work very hard to get it out in August. Another important take-home message: like be aware that when we release things, it's not completed. This is an unstable version, as we call it, which means that if things doesn't work as we hope, we can change them. So,
Quickly.
so
Yeah.
you read the rules when you play games and you find weird stuff and things you don't enjoy, let us know. Post on the forum, and if enough people does that, we will change things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, keep that in mind when you read the rules. Things can change, and also keep in mind that balance will not be top tier, right? They will they
Yeah,
will suffer
I think
from this.
that's normal from the amount of changes that you're going to implement. That's expected, but I mean, I
Mm,
myself am confident enough into the project. We saw before changes happening, and then you're able to adjust and to react to that quickly enough. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I think the Ninth Age, one of the key strengths is the agility, the ability to adjust quickly. If you compare it to Warhammer before, I mean, it's completely different. You're not staying with a broken army book for 5 years. I mean, that's something that's not going to happen with our game. So I'm confident that that's not going to be an issue. I mean, of course, it will not be balanced at the beginning, but we're going to find it out, and I think that's also expected. You like at the moment with a limited amount of play tester, and when you release it open to everybody, it's much more insight and reports and stuff coming on. And like you said, the only message should be to the people: report, use the forum. That's one of the strengths of the project. So use the forum to communicate with the staff and report stuff that are not balanced.
And also report your games.
Yeah.
So we get the results. But that's probably mostly relevant when we start having tournaments.
Yeah.
But tournament results are hugely important in the balancing of the game.
Do you get a side question on that? Do you get the data directly from New Recruit? Like if people report training games in New Recruit, do you get that? Or only tournament data?
We get both. We use mostly tournament data. The tournament data, it's weighted a lot higher than the garage game.
Yeah.
Although we get them, we do look at them, and we see if there are any major trends and things like that.
Okay.
So, I mean, these games, they do matter, but the tournament games, they matter even more.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Okay, Eric, I think we are over. We are leading towards the 1 hour, which was our goal at the beginning. So thanks a lot for your time, for all this useful information. I think the community will enjoy the answer that you gave, also for the people watching in replay. Thanks a lot to the people that took part in the live chat. I've enjoyed the discussion with you, Eric. And talk to you soon. Maybe we'll have the occasion to do another conversation later on in the year. We will see how that goes. But
maybe we do post-release and sort of recap what happened. How did it go?
Exactly, would be happy to. Guys, thanks so much for taking part to the live session or watching the replay, and talk to you soon for other content on the channel. Bye-bye. Okay, I will be...
Bye.
So I'm stopping the streaming.